Welcome back to the Full Force Fathers podcast. Dave, episode number 84. Can I just say something really quick? I am not 100% recovered from that 50 miler, then the week, then the drive, then the week. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm still getting these weird, like, little twinges, like, in my hips and, like, numbness in my glutes, and it's weird.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'd be surprised if you were, at this point, back to normal, because that's a beating you put on yourself.
Yeah, it surely is. And last night we went into Home Depot and Spirit Halloween to look for some just last minute Halloween decorations. The kids wanted to look for them, and they were like, someone I know is doing a 100-miler, and Andy's like, oh, so-and-so is doing a 100-miler, and I'm like, oh, I don't pity them at all or envy them at all. And I said, and Madison goes, Dad, you think you could do another one? I said, I don't know if I could do 100 right now, but I could easily do another 50. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but my body, like, that's what brought up the conversation of how my body was. And I'm like, dude, but my body is still not right. Like, I'll still get these random times where right in my left glute down my left hamstring, it'll just like get all like tingly and numb for no reason. I'll just be like walking or doing something. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that feels weird. And my right quad took like almost a full week to get like all the numbness back. Cause literally I did that race, had a hell of a busy work week, stressful week, then drove across the country on it. Excuse me. Sorry, guys, for sneezing on camera.
Zoom tight.
And, dude, it's still not, my feet are back to normal. Like all my blisters, all that stuff's healed, but man, my legs still are, it's fucking weird.
That's a win. Jeez. All right. Well, here's to hoping you get better soon.
Yeah, let's roll in episode 84. We got some great numbers. It is very football centric, football dominant. And there's two people on here. Well, there's three that are the big three, but really there's two that are great. And then one that, to me, I mean, both these guys are the first two guys on the list are both all timers, but one of them just stands out above the rest. And that is the great Randy Moss, number 84, all his years with Minnesota. Statistically, he's an alien, dude. He had 982 catches, just under 16,000 yards receiving, and 156 touchdowns. Career reception average over 15 yards per catch, which is just, everybody knows he was the bomber, dude. Culpepper, those guys could just sling it in Minnesota to him, and he would just go get it. I mean, he probably is. He's obviously most famous for Minnesota, but his best statistically. How about that year that he had with Brady when they lost in the Super Bowl when they were undefeated? What an upset by the shit Giants in the Super Bowl. But that year was just unbelievable. Brady threw for like 50 scores, and it was just nuts.
Oh, it is bonkers. He was incredible, and I got to see it as a Dallas Cowboy fan. He was 7-0 against the Cowboys, and he had 10 total touchdowns.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
And,
he averaged 19 yards of reception in those games. I mean, it was just ridiculous. The one I remember most vividly, it was a Thanksgiving game. He caught 3 passes for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns.
3 catches for 160
for
yards.
163 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. All three balls were taken to pay dirt. What is that an average
I'm pretty sure the Cowboys passed on him in the draft, and that was like every time he went out against the Cowboys, like, I'm just gonna whoop him. Just gonna whoop up on him.
That's literally 55 yards per catch.
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, you're right.
Oh, that's amazing. But anyways, he's turned into a good TV. He's good on TV. He's not, a little bit of a head case, a little bit of diva in him. That's wide receivers. Wide receivers are divas in general. We had T.O. just a few weeks ago, and now Randy Moss, the two biggest of all time. And then next week we'll have Ocho Cinco, who might be the third biggest diva of all time, back to back. But it turned out to a good TV guy. And then he has his own segment, right? You got Moss, because that's what he used to do to people, because he just always went up over you and got the ball, or just made the defensive back look really, really bad.
Yep. Yeah, he was a lot of fun to watch. Man, just the way he could run and just get after it. It was just incredible. He was a lot of fun to watch. Definitely the best 84 on the list.
And also the other thing about him that was so impressive, he wasn't like, Calvin Johnson freak, T.O. physical freak.
Yeah,
he was just skinny.
Small.
Skinny, played at Marshall, didn't like go to a huge school or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And just came into the league. Remember him and Carter and Culpepper on those Minnesota Viking teams were just unbelievable. Unbelievable to watch.
Yeah.
In the dome in Minnesota, on the turf. They were just fast. I mean, it was our generation of football in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, early 2000s, there was just some phenomenal talent to watch.
You think about it, you just said it, right? He came from Marshall. Think about three of the best receivers of all time, right? Randy Moss, Marshall. Terrell Owens went to wasn't it Middle Tennessee?
Somewhere in the South, yep.
Yeah. And Jerry Rice played for Mississippi Valley State.
Yeah, dude. You know what?
Like,
and not for nothing,
unbelievable.
Calvin Johnson played at Georgia Tech. That's not known. They're not known for football at Georgia Tech.
No.
So
crazy.
I just looked it up. So T.O. went to University of Tennessee at Chattanooga.
Chattanooga, that's right.
Yeah,
Chattanooga.
Yeah.
I love it.
So four of the greatest wide receivers. I mean, Tim Brown was right up there too, but at least he went to Notre Dame. You know what I mean?
Right. But the others, I mean, holy cow.
It's kind of like
Unreal.
it's kind of like NBA superstars that didn't play at big schools, right? Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. A lot of these guys didn't play at big schools. Like everyone thinks you got to come from Duke or Kentucky or UConn to be an all timer. Shaq, LSU,
Yeah.
Kobe from high school. Duncan played at Wake Forest. I mean, it's not like these guys came from massive schools. But moving on the list, The next one you could argue behind Tony Gonzalez, probably the next great tight end of all time, is right up there. You know what I mean? I know we'll have a debate when Travis Kelce's finally done, see how many rings he wins in Kansas City with Mahomes. But Shannon Sharpe, 84, all-time tight end, went down. When he did retire, he was the number one statistical tight end in history. 815 catches, big number for a tight end. Over 10,000 yards receiving and 62 touchdowns. I mean, those are just mega stat-worthy numbers for a tight end. And like I said, when he retired before Tony Gonzalez, he had all those statistical categories on lock. Tony Gonzalez was a freak and had played a long time. But Shannon Sharpe also, another not shocking. A lot of these superstars do get into TV. He's another big TV guy. ESPN, Fox. I don't know. I mean, a little bit more on the TV side than I do, but a big TV personality, just like like Moss.
Yeah.
But moving on, but like I said, 84 is all football for the most part. We do have a couple more, but all wide receivers, tight ends. Gary Clark is in the Hall of Fame. Sterling Sharpe, who was the tight end for the Packers for years with Brett Favre. More current players that wore 85. Roddy White no longer is in the league, but Roddy White, all those great years in Atlanta. Antonio Brown before he became a whack job, when Antonio Brown was scorching the NFL in Pittsburgh with Ben Roethlisberger.
He was so good.
Dude, so good, Antonio Brown. And you know what?
Yeah.
The one thing that I always loved about Antonio Brown, and it's another reason why I love a Cooper Kupp. These guys aren't big. All these other great receivers just were fast, huge, physical speed, some kind of freak of nature type talent. Antonio Brown's not big. Cooper Kupp's not big. Tyreek Hill's the fastest person in the league, but he's not a big receiver, And that's what's so impressive. Take it back a few more years. You had Joey Galloway. TJ Houshmandzadeh, who played alongside Ocho Cinco for years in Cincinnati. This one's for you. Jay Novacek, wore 84.
Oh, love it. Back to the good old days of the Cowboys, man. I miss me some Jay Novacek.
The good old Novacek. And then also, recently had some good years in Atlanta. Cordell Patterson wears 84. So I mean, 84 is a good number. I didn't even put all the 84s on here. I just wanted to go highlight the major ones and then just a bunch of other guys that we know. But 84 overall, really, really, really good from a football standpoint. Nothing to basketball, nothing to baseball, but one in racing. This is a common name that I think people know. AJ Allmendinger, if you know anything about racing.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone knows the name AJ Allmendinger if you follow NASCAR. He has 38 starts in the 84 car. But the bigger news when it comes to NASCAR is when Jimmy Johnson decided to come back and add some races to his schedule this year. The great Jimmy Johnson, arguably the greatest NASCAR driver of all time, who drove 48, the Lowe's car for years, 7 championships. when he decided to come out of retirement, he switched. He now has the 84 car. So, like I said, take it for what it's worth. The old 84 is the reincarnation of the great Jimmy Johnson, I guess.
If it's one thing we can count on Full Force Fathers, it's you bringing the NASCAR and the hockey news to the show. So thank you for that. I didn't know Jimmy Johnson was racing again. So that's fantastic news. Thank you.
So breaking news for everybody. If you didn't know, JJ's back in the saddle again. And then in hockey, just for you, for your local Nashville Predators, the guy by the name of Tanner Jeannot. I don't even know if I pronounced it right. It's probably Canadian. If it's Jeannot, so Jeannot. He wore 84 his entire career, and he does have 120 goal season in the 84 sweater. By the way, not a jersey, it's a sweater in hockey, just for everyone that's not really that sure about it.
I love it. I mean, your knowledge, the depth of knowledge you have on hockey is, second to maybe none.
Yeah, 20 goals, that's what Wayne Gretzky used to get in a week, I think. He scored 20 goals a week in his heyday with the Kings and the Oilers, you know?
He's only 1,500 off the pace.
I'd like to know what the most goals Wayne Gretzky ever scored in a week. I don't know if that's a statistic that's out there. I'd like to know how many goals, because if think about it, it's like basketball, right? They play an 80-game schedule or whatever. I'd like to know how many he has scored in a calendar week, like a Sunday to Saturday, if they have like 4 or 5 games in that week. I bet you it's got to be over 20, but maybe not.
You would think so.
A couple hat tricks in
there.
Think
so.
Maybe 14 or 15. Let's say he's played 4. He had 4 games, a hat trick in 2 of them. That's 6, and then a goal. Maybe 12 in a week.
Goals or points? Points.
Points is probably huge because he's Wayne Gretzky and he just scored points like it was nobody's business. But goals, I don't know.
It'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna make a note right now and then see if I check back in with you guys next week and see if I can find another useless Wayne Gretzky stat.
There was one stretch of time where he scored 50 goals in 39 games. That's a lot more than a week, but that's a lot. So
50 goals in 39 games.
50, and this guy scored 20 in one season.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah, that's good. Moving on to the Bible verse. This is a longer one today. But I wanted to touch base on this one because I think in a world of keeping up, like last week we mentioned, that song by Dan and Shay, trying to keep up with people named Jones and all that stuff, and a big word that I don't think gets used enough. I read it in some great Rachel Cruz books. And that word is contentment. I think people are just never content. They're never satisfied. So this Bible verse, I wanted to piggyback off of some of the things we talked about last week, and it comes from 1 Timothy. And it's a long one, so bear with me. It's 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 6 through 10. And it starts off, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those that want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." We could do an entire episode on this one paragraph. Just read this again. I don't need to read it again, but if you're listening to the show, go back to 1 Timothy 6 and then read chapter 6, 6 through 10, verse 6 through 10. Is this not hit, Dave, perfectly on the head in this world that we live in? Like, we're brought into this world with nothing. We leave with nothing, right? But everyone feels the need for the cars and the houses and the shit and the watches and the this and the that. But if we had food and clothing, right, 2 basic necessities, then we will be content and we will be fine. But people chase money. They chase the evil desires and temptation. And money is not a bad thing. That obviously Dave and I preach, financial success and financial gain. We're not preaching you to go chase dollars to get rich, to buy a bunch of dumb shit. That's not in everyone gets this verse confused a lot because they say money is the root of all evil. And everyone forgets the first 3 words before money is the root of all evil. It is for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. And that's where people get it twisted. Everyone go, "Oh, money's the root of all evil." No, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. When you love money and you put everything else on the back burner, that's what it means.
Yeah, what you said is great, right? it's important to go out and make money, take care of your family, support those things, change your family tree, all that sort of thing. That's important. But worshiping money, that's the problem. If everything you do is with the intent of making another dollar, that's where the problems come into play. And in the beginning of this, it's so true. We can't take anything out of this world, right? It's the old saying, people say, you can't take it with you. You might as well spend it when you can't take it with you. And it's true, you can't take it with you. And you do come in with nothing. And think about how peaceful you come into this world when you've got no problems, no stress, no anything. As a little baby, you look at a little baby and their innocence is the thing that, to me, always stands out as just the most precious thing in the world, because they haven't been in a position to understand some of the truths and realities of this world. So when you come into it, you're completely innocent in this world. You come in with nothing. And we spend so much time trying to compete throughout our lives with those around us, people we don't know, people we'll never probably meet, try and impress them just to drive a fancier car or to wear more expensive clothes, to look like we have a lot. Is that really what's important? And I think this verse absolutely says that it's not. That's not what's important. Contentment is a thing that I think our generation needs to practice more of. The upcoming generation, I don't think, knows anything of it. I think we were right on that fringe where it's like we didn't, we're kind of growing up in a time where contentment was sort of a regularly practiced thing with our parents. But I don't think the generation now coming up is that at all.
Yeah, and we have a bunch of topics that we're going to hit on today, but I want to just tie this contentment thing into kind of modern day. Like you said, our kids don't know anything about contentment, right? And we've talked about cell phones on the show before. We've had episodes on our kids are getting cell phones and this and that. And I listened to a good podcast this week, and you've been listening to it too, with a guy on Chad's podcast on 3 of 7. He talks about cell phones and getting rid of smartphones, and just even if you take a break. And I think a lot of problems in youth, and even us, like we grew up without cell phones. Our youth didn't have cell phones, so we were still privy to normal life. I like to say it. And God, I wish we could go back to that life of no social media, shit being closed on Sundays. Like that's the life I'd love to go back to. You know what I mean? But that's way long gone, and we're headed down an evil path. But the cell phone thing is just like that. I'm going to put a lot of the heavy weight on the technological advances of the cell phone and internet as to why we live in the society we live in, because you can literally connect with anybody you want in the world on your little device right here and click on, oh, I see that so-and-so from so-and-so has this, and now I got to have that. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's such an evil, I don't even know what the words I sent to you in the text message were the other day. After listening to that podcast, I'm going to see if I can find it really quick and read it again, because it was word for word what he said in the podcast.
One of the things too that, these things they're just, it's a mini computer that you carry around, right? It connects you to everyone and everything in the world. You don't have to be in front of somebody to say anything. So we've talked about it with kids before, the bullying, that just cyber attack that people will get is very prominent. The other thing too is you don't need to remember anything.
Yep.
Right? You can always look it up. Like, oh, I heard that once, then let me go and find the answer. So you don't ever have to really learn or retain anything, and that's a little alarming to me. The other thing too that's worth noting is that these devices, we as humans like to be busy. We like to do things, right? And I think it gives us a false sense of actually accomplishing something.
Yeah,
just go on your phone, you're scrolling, you think you're doing something. Like in your mind, you think you're accomplishing something. You're actually doing nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. Nothing of productivity. And what is the point of getting the alerts on your phone? We intake all this information into us. And what can we actually do with that information? Most of the time, it's nothing. Think about it, got the scores to all the games that came in this weekend.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
What can I do with that information? Nothing. You get alerts about the weather. You get alerts about the news, all these things. And most of the time, it's bad. It's negative anyway. So it's just it puts you in a state of anxiety and the mood that you have throughout the day, all because of this little device here that it's really taken away from our socialization skills and our.
And I want to bring it up something that you said. You said about like you don't even have to know anything or remember anything anymore. And something you did when I was in town last week. I don't know if you remember it. We were sitting watching a little bit of the football game, and Bryce couldn't find his mouthpiece. So you literally grabbed your phone, and this is our society. This is nothing at you. This is just society in general. Because I know people that literally can't live without their phone calendar. You grabbed your phone and you said, "Hey Siri, remind me to look for Bryce's mouthpiece tomorrow morning at 7:30." And that was it. And guess what? The next day at 7:30 a.m., you got a reminder from Siri that said, "Hey, look for Bryce's mouthpiece." And that's what it is, dude. It never, like, people don't have to do anything anymore. It's the old adage, right? When are you going to have a calculator to do the math? You're not going to have your calculator in your pocket all the time, right? And you say that to the teacher, but now you really have a super computer that has all the information in the world you could ever imagine in your pocket.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't just have a calculator. I've got the keys to the entire world in front of me.
Yeah, and
I can just pull out of my pocket and use whenever I want to.
So I just pulled up the quote. I found the quote that I had sent to you, and it says, "Cell phones and are the greatest technology that the devil ever created." That's what the guy said. Wow. Cell phones are the greatest technology that the devil, and it could not be more accurate. When you hear that,
true?
When you hear that freaking line, it's just absolutely insane. But speaking on cell phones, this guy also on the show said back in 2021 he was working with somebody who had a flip phone. He just could not believe, how do you have a flip phone? You're a web developer. You literally develop apps. How do you have a flip phone? And the guy said, these phones are programmed to make you become addicted, just like drugs or alcohol or anything like that. And he challenged him to go 30 days, no social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name all of them. No social media apps, no internet on his phone. 30 days. So that was in November of 2021. We are now closing in on 2 years. The only thing he has on his cell phone, he has an iPhone 8 still. This is tremendous. He's got an iPhone 8. He only has email, podcasts, phone calls, and text messages. That's it. He has nothing else. He's deleted everything else off the phone. So he can only get his work emails. He can only call and text people, and he can listen to podcasts only. And it brings up something funny because you and I have had this conversation for a while now about this dumb phone that they made it. I think Cart was the first one that showed it to us. I think he definitely was. And then you told me about the light phone, which I think is the same thing as the dumb phone, because you have gone away. This is, nothing revolutionary or crazy, but you yourself, you don't wear an Apple Watch anymore.
No, I don't wear an Apple Watch. See, I got my old school Seiko, which I got, almost 20 years ago now, as a graduation present from college from my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
And I threw it back on. I haven't worn it in so long, and I was getting so many alerts throughout the day. Now I know I can shut the alerts off. Like, I get it. I don't need comments like, "Oh, you can just no." I know I can do that. But I was getting so many alerts throughout the day. I always found myself checking it, seeing what was going on, and it was consuming so much time. So I was like, I'm just going to stop wearing it. Excuse me. And now I go through the day, and like when I pick up my phone, I still pick up my phone too often. But when I pick up my phone, I see what's going on at that point. I don't get alerted when I get a text message that comes through all the time. So I'm like sitting in a meeting, and I'm not like looking at my wrist, nonstop looking at my wrist to see what's going on. And my phone's in my pocket. I'm concentrated. I'm focused on the conversation I'm having. And it's allowed me to be much more productive in those meetings.
Yeah, it's amazing what every little thing that they create with now. And I think a good word to describe it all, it's all just a distraction. It literally is a distraction to make you numb and like just mindlessly walking around, aimlessly walking around, and numb to just everything that's going around you, and going on around you. And it's amazing. Like, so he said that it's been almost 2 years, and he said just the amount of gains he's made in every aspect of his life, his business. He owns a company, his wife, his kids. They said it's unbelievable. So I'm not saying tomorrow I'm going to start some sort of challenge. I think it would be pretty cool to do it. As you know, I was always, and I'll admit it, I was addicted to Twitter. Like Twitter, I was a scroller on Twitter all the time. I'm not perfect at all, I always was going on Twitter because I always got my news that way. Oh, look, and then I would send screenshots to you, and then the fucking snowball rolls and rolls and rolls. over 2 weeks ago now, I deleted Twitter from my phone. I said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm so sick and tired of wasting an hour a day or however much it adds up every time you open it, looking at this stupid app. Nothing against Elon Musk. I think he's great. He's a billionaire. He's the richest man in the world. He's a genius. He's not, he's created so many great things. I just couldn't do it anymore. It was getting to the point where there was so much, all of this is negative. It's one side talking about this, one side talking about that, the economy, this, that, and the other thing. So I got rid of it. And I'm getting to the point next. We were talking about it last night with Andine and Finn and Caroline and Madison. I was like, what's the next one am I going to get rid of? And Andine goes, you'll never get rid of Instagram, because she's right. Now I find myself scrolling Instagram more. I'm not really a big Facebook guy anymore. But so I'm getting to the point, and I'm not ready to just do it yet, but I'm getting to the point now where I am going to delete Instagram and Facebook, and those are all going to be gone off my phone. And what am I going to do at that point? I don't, you know what I mean? Those are the 3 apps that I go on besides my fantasy football app and stuff. You know what I mean? Other than that, I'm not going to go on those apps anymore. So I'm not saying we should start a challenge, but I think somewhere here in the relative future, do some sort of 1 week challenge. Easy for you. You don't do social media, you know what I mean, on your phone, which is really, really nice. You're already at that point, and I'm working to get to that point where I can just say, hell with it. I'm getting rid of it all. And then, the one big thing that I loved he said is, you know what he does now? He actually talks to people. He actually texts people, because he doesn't connect with them on a Facebook Messenger. Here's a picture of my kid, or how's your life, blah, blah. You actually have to go back to the old school. I know it's not a rotary phone, but you still have to pick up the phone and dial the phone number and call the person, versus just sending them a DM on Instagram, which everybody does these days. And like I said, I'm guilty of it too. I just think it would be good, especially for me. And, if we could get some people to jump on board, I think it would be a really good thing for the freaking world. You know what I mean? Right now, if we all just got back to talking to each other in person and talking on the phone, and not just being so consumed with everyone else's life all the time. You know what I mean?
Think about too, as fathers, right? How much more connected you can be to your kids.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have your phone, we talked about that all the time. Like the kids see you on your phone. If you just don't have those things there, and you're using it for phone calls, you got business calls you got to make, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if you're not just sitting there just aimlessly scrolling on the phone, I mean, I think what an impact we can have on our kids and how they see technology and how we use it with them. I've told you that I'm thinking about getting a minimalist phone, actually making a transition. Yeah. My time is up with my iPhone. I'm ready to make a change anyway. So, there's a couple out there that I've looked at. Actually had lunch today with somebody who's done it. He's using a new a minimalist phone, and he was kind of telling me some of the ups and downs of the process of going through it, and what are the positives, negatives to it. He's like, he gave me some ideas of how you can ease into it, because it is an addictive thing. That's what I think most people don't realize, is that it's addictive. Yeah. The apps are addictive. The colors that you see are addictive. Where they put things on the screen are addictive to get you to go and scroll and do those things. The algorithms that feed you the content that you are most likely to look at. All of those things are designed to keep you locked into it so that you're consuming more. You are consuming. And we need to get away from that. And yeah, I took social media off my phone. I don't use social media at all anymore. Mm-hmm. Not just off my phone. I don't use it at all. And my life's better for that. I don't miss it at all. But there's still things that I could take off my phone, because I still find it's interesting, right? I'll get up from my desk, go walk to the bathroom, and I take my phone out of my pocket and I just open up a news app, or I open up this, or I open up that. For what purpose? I don't need to do that. I'm just walking to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. But it's like a need. It's like it feels just like an addict, right? Like you need a hit of it. I need it. I need to see it.
You need that dopamine hit.
Yeah, you need that dopamine hit. And I think getting rid of that and getting a phone that doesn't have any of those things on it, but just simply has your ability to make calls, text messages, and listen to music or podcasts, that to me is all that I really need. And then beyond that, have a laptop at home. I can search things. Not being inundated with some of the things that happen throughout the day, some of the news stories that I see, some of the things I hear, some of the things that, you look at something, you get a sports thing, you're like, oh, my favorite player is out for the season. Yeah. It wrecks the rest of my day. Those types of things, you're just not going to see that anymore. And I think that would be a wonderful way to go about the day. So I'm pretty close to making that change. And I do think we should have some sort of a challenge for folks to start getting into that, and maybe eventually we develop a program to wean people off of this device that consumes so much of our time to connect you more with people and really put you in a position to make a bigger impact in the world than just sitting there aimlessly scrolling on a thing in front of you.
Yeah, I think it would be insane if you really just stopped and thought about how many people are on their phones all day long. If you just took that away, like the amount of opportunity that would open up in their lives for so many other more meaningful things. Yeah. But once again, this all stems back to the first word of 1 Timothy, contentment. Nobody is content, right? You're just nothing's ever good enough anymore. And I just think that's a big deal. And the second topic, I don't really have a good segue into the second topic that I want to talk about today, but I wanted to talk a little bit about change in life. And as all of you that know what I do for a living, I do mortgages for a living. And if any of you pay attention to the news, it's just not good. We have never seen before levels in my lifetime of interest rates soaring and whatnot, and the affordability index on housing is the worst it's been in 50 years. It's like there's never been a worse, less. I don't know if is it unaffordable, inaffordable, less affordable. There's never been a less affordable time ever to buy a home right now. Interest rates just a few days ago ticked over 8% national average for your conventional 30-year mortgage, over 8%. I was telling Dave, it was just a little bit more than 2 years ago that Dave had listen, sit down and be ready for this. Dave had a 2.125 interest rate just 2 years ago. And in 2 years, we've gone from 2, some people were even at 1.99 up to over 8. That's unbelievable. And I think people are really starting to see now the ramifications of that, because mortgage applications are at all-time lows, affordability all-time lows, home prices are still high. And guess what? Here's the problem. There's no inventory. There's literally no inventory. So with no inventory, home prices aren't going to come down. It's simple supply and demand. Everybody learned about supply and demand in Economics 101. If demand is high, supply is low, that keeps prices high. Okay. On top of high prices, interest rates are high. So you literally have the triple threat of badness. No homes for sale, high home prices, and high interest rates. So I brought up the question, go ahead.
I was going to say, you're at a standoff right now.
Yep.
Who in their right mind is going to want to move unless you have to?
Mm-hmm.
So the inventory is not going to raise until the interest rates come down, where people are like, okay, now I can move and I can get into a different house. But hey, we're at a standstill right now.
And they're not building enough homes fast enough to keep up with it. And even then, new home builders are still getting hit with the same interest rate problem that we are. They have a couple different incentives because they have a couple different pockets they can dig, and they can, they have the profit from the building bucket, and then they have the profit from the loan bucket. So they can dig into both buckets to make interest rates. I know someone that just bought a new build, and they got like 5-point-something% because they're literally digging from their profits of the building side to pay for the rate buy down for the customer so they can sell these houses. Well, guess what? That can only last for so long as well. That's a temporary. That's a Band-Aid on that's a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. That's not going to fix anything, because you can't just have all these home builders that, especially out here in the desert, are building hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes, all of a sudden taking $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 baths on every home. They won't be able to sustain that either. So really, like I said, they're just putting a Band-Aid on it. But it brought up the question for me, and you and I have talked about this in deep discussion, and this doesn't have to be in my case. This can be in anybody's case. When is it time to change? When is it time for a change? Could it be your job? When will you financially change your patterns and your habits? When is it time to, grab your health and fitness by the horns again and change what you're doing that you don't like? It's simple to talk about my situation and a little bit of vulnerability with me because, the market sucks. But what I'm battling, and this is an internal battle, is when is it time to make a change? How long do you hold on where you don't feel like, if you do move on, are you a quitter? Are you a failure, right? I have trouble with that label all the time, when a lot of times my situation, or not anybody's situation, there's so many extenuating circumstances that are outside of your control. Like, you can only control what you can control. But when all of these things are all adding up, yeah, you can grind and you can listen to all these gurus and coaches and you just got to get it and just, enough is enough. But at some point, you really can't do anything anymore, right? You have to put food on the table for your family. You have to feed your family. You have to support them. You have to make, enough money to survive, right? So, like, is there a right time, a wrong time? How do you battle with that consistency of feeling like a failure because you've been doing something for 5 or 6 years and you love it, but you're just not producing and you're not getting paid. And if you don't get paid, then, the spiral happens. What are your thoughts on change in general, or even, a situation similar to mine, or what, because I know you've gone through it a little bit with other jobs.
Yeah, I have gone through it. I've gone through it twice, and each time it sucked. And it was a hard conversation to have with myself. It was a hard conversation to have with Casey. Because you do commit a lot of time, money, resources, energy to whatever it is you're trying to do. We go back to talking about competing with the Joneses, right? Like, we're always trying to compete and make it look like, oh, we have more than we have, right? It doesn't matter what those people think, and it goes the same in this conversation too. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If somebody else thinks you're a quitter, who cares? That doesn't matter at all. The only thing that matters is that you know that you tried your best to get it across the line. You have a family. You have a wife and 3 kids who are counting on you to help provide for them. It's when you decide, you and Andine, that, you know what, the time's come. I've put as much into this as I can right now. I need to pivot. I need to do something else. Now, not to say that you have to stop your dream. You don't have to stop that. But maybe you just have to replan. You have to refigure out what that looks like. Maybe it's going and getting a full-time job, and you do your passionate project on the side until you can get that really, really cranking. Maybe interest rates come down, home inventory goes up, and you can start seeing the market change. You start diving back into that again, and then maybe you spin it to you're back into a full-time. Maybe it's, you devote most of your day to it, and you pick up an overnight job, or you pick up a couple part-time jobs to do it. There's no right or wrong way to go about it and cut it. For me, the first time I went through this, I left the U of A. I wanted to become a financial advisor. Thought I had the right path, went down that path, realized about 6 months in that wasn't the right path for me, and I wasn't going to make it. I was out of leads. I was out of everything. And I look back at my family, and the most important thing to me was putting food on the table. So I went and I found work. I got to the point at which that job stopped paying me. It was a startup company, stopped paying me. And I was like, all right, I need to make another transition. I had been doing really good in real estate part-time and had made, between, I don't know, I think it was 30 and 60,000 for 3 years in a row just on the side in real estate. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make this transition. And I dove in. And what happened as soon as I went into it full time, right? You could see it. The market just was going. And again, it was one of those things I probably could have toughed it out for a while, but if I'd still been doing, I don't know where I'd be right now. I'd probably be working a couple part-time jobs because look at the market right now. You know what it is. You're in it every day. So that's why I made the change and found something different. And to me, it always went back to I never had the willingness to sit through that real dangerous period where I might not be able to put food on the table. And a lot of times people will say, the gurus will say, well, that's what you have to do. You have to go through those moments. That's what's going to keep you forced moving forward. But for me, that risk wasn't worth the reward there. And I made the change. Some people might look at me and say, oh, you failed. You quit. I don't care. I'm in a good spot right now. I feel good about the decisions I made. Do I regret, not making it there? Yeah, I wish I did, because I went into it in the first place. I wish I had made it. I wish I had made it in those paths, but I didn't. And that's okay. That doesn't make me any less of a person. You know what? I think that speaks volumes to who I am, because I prioritize the things that are important to me, which is my family. And at the end of the day, that's all we can do is worry about ourselves and our families.
Yeah, no, and it's like, and I'm not at the point now, and I had personal conversations on this situation. If I give it to the end of the year and see what happens, I'm closing loans still, but it's just not fruitful like it has been. And you can try every which way to do everything, and sometimes there's just so much outside stuff going on that if no one's buying houses, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're, and I feel for a lot of the quote unquote top loan officers in our industry that are doing 20, 30 loans a month, and all of a sudden now they're doing 5. Like, that's a big change. When you live $1 million lifestyle and all of a sudden you're making $100,000 a year, like that's a big change. You know what I mean? And it's funny how it all ties in. It's not funny, but it's funny how it all ties in together with contentment, with debt, with the world economy, with what's going on, how it always ties into each other, you know? But no, you know, and I'm not saying I can't leave my industry. The good thing about my industry is I can stay licensed in my industry. That's one thing that I like about it. Where you said if you pivot, get a part-time job or 2 full-time jobs or a full-time job and a night job, whatever, and pivot, keep your referral sources open and still have your license, just not devote your full time to it. And then I could almost make it work like you, where you had a full-time job and you're doing real estate on the side, where I could have a full-time job and then do, loans on the side and still give everybody my 110% on those loans, but not be so determined and strapped and stressed to do it full-time 8, 10 hours. Because right now you can't do loans 8 hours a day. You can't, unless you have 20 loans in your pipeline. You can't. There's not enough right now going on, because you can always, try new things, but you're never going to recreate the wheel, right? You have to deal with realtors. You have to deal with attorneys. You have to deal with financial advisors. You have to deal with current customers. You can only ask your past customers for referrals so often. You know what I mean? Where it's a revolve. It's cyclical, right? It's the same thing over and over again. You do your Monday stuff, Tuesday stuff, Wednesday stuff, Thursday, and then all of a sudden it's back over again. Well, I already talked these purple twice last week. Switch to next. You know what I mean? So there's only so much that you can do all that before something's got to give. And like I said. And my personal vulnerability is I feel like if I was to leave, I feel like a failure. You know what I mean? When, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but I feel like I'm quitting. And that's that's a mental hurdle that I have to be able to battle to get over myself,
Yeah. I mean, I understand why you feel it. I mean, I certainly have felt that over time too, but it's a choice. It's a choice you're making. You could stay in there, dude. You could stay in there. You can make no money. Yeah. You could do that. That's perfectly fine. That's acceptable. Does that make you better? I would argue and say no.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you better if you're just sitting there and just, rolling down this thing, because what's that doing? The kids are seeing you more stressed, frustrated, angry. Dean's having to work more. She's getting that brunt of it too. It's not, and then you're working overnights, you're doing this, you're doing that to hold on to some. So no, but you have to determine that for yourself, but you also have to be all in on the decision you make, right? Yeah. You say this is what I want to do, you got to be all in on it all the time. That's what it is. Yeah. And the same goes for, we were talking about earlier, maybe when is the time to change your fitness habits, your money habits, your religious habits? You got to be all in when you make those changes. You can't just say, yeah, I think I'm going to do it, because the results aren't going to come. You've got to be all in on it.
Yeah.
And if you decide to go down another path, I'm going all in. I'm going to go down this other path. I'm going to keep this as my side hustle, and that's what I'm going to do. But, being in that middle ground, wishy-washy, that's where things start to really fall apart. At least that's what they did for me until I made decisions, and I was like, this is where I'm going, and this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's just you can't work out for a week and then take 2 weeks off, then go back and work out for 3 days and take 2 weeks off. You can't be dabbling no credit card debt for a month, and then the next month you put money on a car. I mean, you have to be, and like you said, that's the thing, right? It's you got to be all in and say, here, this is what's going to happen. This is what we need to do, and then do it. You know what I mean? And that's the decisions that, hopefully I don't have to make, but you never know in this world. And pride comes before the fall. It says it in the Bible. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to sack up, swallow your pride, and just move on. You know what I mean? And for the betterment, and contentment. Use the word content in a lot of different sentences today. But being content with what you have, until the storm passes. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyways, speaking of the storm that needs to pass, we're not going to go into a lot of other stuff right now, because we're going to wrap the show up kind of where it is, but talking about change and talking about phones and talking about contentment. There's a big storm brewing in the world right now. Whether you want to believe it or not, whether you watch CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or ABC or whatever one you watch, there's a major storm. There's a major storm brewing in this world. There's wars busting out in the Middle East. The United States economy is tanking. I only spoke on just the mortgage side of the economy that's going on right now. The economy is tanking. We're headed, if we're not already in a recession, we're headed for one. Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, came out and said we need economic slowdown to help fight inflation. We've talked about this. There's a war in Israel right now that we have a lot to do with in the sense of protecting Israel from what's going on. There's a lot of bad people going on. So I bring all this up as a reminder from a book that we've already talked about, and it's called Prepared by Mike Glover. I'm not saying, there it is, Prepared by Mike Glover. I'm not saying you need to have a garage full of gasoline and toilet paper and food buckets that will last 50 years. What I'm telling people is you just got to be prepared for anything that is possible moving forward. We have a southern border that's been open for 3 years now with just floods of people coming in. Like I said, there's war breaking out in the Middle East. There's instability in the economy and in the market. And when people get crazy is when they lose their money, when they have no money and they become desperate. So being slightly prepared is better than not being prepared at all. I think reading the book Prepared will help you if you don't know where to begin. I'm not saying you have to turn into a psycho build a bunker prepper. I'm telling you need to be prepared to feed your family for a few days if you can't go to the grocery store. I'm telling you to be prepared if you lose power for a day. I'm telling you to be prepared if you don't have any water all of a sudden. I'm not telling you to become a crazy prepper because I know plenty of crazy preppers in the world. I'm not saying go invest all your life savings in gold and silver and Ranger buckets. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you, most people don't have a fucking plan for 24 hours, let alone a week, you know?
Right. Yeah, that book's phenomenal, and I've taken a lot of good things from it. There's a few that really stand out to me. The first, you just mentioned the first two, having water. There's one thing we can't live without for more than a couple days in this world, and that's water. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you need to have water. So if the water gets shut off, you need to have water. So make sure you have water on hand. Second is food. Make sure you have some food to get you through in a pantry or something, non-perishables that you have there. And the one that really stuck out to me, which I think is super important, is just having a plan. Like at one point in the book, he says, if someone bursts through the front door with a gun right now, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You need to have a plan for that. Mm. Your kids need to know the plan that's in place. Mm-hmm. Everyone needs to know. He talks about a fire, having 3 different points of exiting that, like a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and what those are. And everybody needs to know what they are. So if you shout out what the plan is, everyone knows, including the animals, the dogs, what the plan is. Okay, you can train them to do that. And those are the 3 things that really stood out to me. Like, yeah, you can go, you can gear up, you can get guns and ammo and have these things. You can build out a full rig. Yeah, you can go create like tourniquets for everybody in the family plus some, and like there's a lot you can do, and it is all valuable. But a lot of people can't afford to do that, right? Mm-hmm. But the things that you can afford to do are some of those things. Just fill up old buckets, put them in the garage of water. You're good to go. Go buy some cheap rice and beans. That's all you need. Rice and beans. Go do it. Stock your pantry, and then just come up with a plan with you and your family. What are we going to do in this situation? What if we can't get home one day? What if the highways are closed down? Where do we meet? What is the meeting point as the family as a whole? If the cell phones go down, you can't call anybody. You can't do anything. What are we going to do? Yeah. And that, I think, those are the main takeaways from me. Have a plan. Have food. Have water.
Yeah, the big one that you mentioned about, I think it was the third one, was the plan that everyone in the house is on the same page. Do your kids know how to open windows if they're locked? Do they know how to get out windows? Do they know how to crawl under things? Do they know how to open the doors? Like, I have a 5-year-old. Like, sometimes the door's a pain in the ass for her to open. Well, in a panic, it's probably going to be that much more of a pain in the ass to open, right? So do you have a prepare, right? And I'm not saying about guns, but like, do you carry an everyday carry? Is it in the bedroom safe and someone breaks through the front door on the living room, in the first floor living room, and your gun's upstairs in the bedroom? Well, guess what? Like, those are little things that most people don't think about. To add to your water, rice and beans, get some boxes of pasta, dude. That shit lasts forever, dude. And you have water, you can boil it, you know. And then the other thing I will say, I'm not saying you need to have a tourniquet for every person in the house. We have tourniquets. I am a huge proponent of having tourniquets and having a full med kit. I think that is so important that everybody has a full med kit. I'm not saying a little first aid kit the size of a 5x7 picture frame. I am saying having a backpack full of medical supplies. I think it is imperative to have it. And that's going to have everything in it, from gauze pads to tourniquets to Band-Aids to Advil, ibuprofen, Tylenol, rubbing alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, iodine. That stuff you have to have. I don't think that's a negotiable. Water and medical supplies and some food are, And I do think, you should have a couple weeks, 3 weeks worth of food. You know what I mean? If you have 10 boxes of pasta and you have 20 cans of vegetables, those canned foods and tuna fish, like you're going to be fine. You're going to be able to live for, if you go, listen, if we get to a month without food, the world's over. Just heads up, FYI, if we get to a full month without food, it's already over at that point. At least you'll live that month with food. You know what I mean? But, if you guys are out there that can afford it, have a generator. Make sure you got enough gas to run that generator for a week, things like that. But like I said, I'm not saying turn into a crazy prepper nutcase. I'm just saying be prepared, because you just don't know in the uncertainty of what's going on in the world right now. This is us telling you, hey, shit could hit the fan. Shit can never happen. Guess what? What's the worst case scenario? Nothing bad ever happens, and you just have some food that you can eat and munch on when you want to, and you still have medical kits, because there's always going to be an emergency.
Right. Yep, you're 100% right.
So if you haven't read Prepared, go out and get Prepared by Mike Glover. It's a great book. Fieldcraft Survival is his company. It's a really good company, by the way. You can check out their website and stuff. But that's all I got for you today, Dave. That was a jam-packed episode. And everyone have a great week. Reach out. Share the show. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, everybody get out there, continue to live a full forest life. We'll see you next week.